that I'm seeing on the street. I never thought I'd see the day. Since when are Latin people scared of heat? When I was a little girl growing up in the hills of Vega Alta, my favorite time of year was Christmas time.
Ask me why.
Why? There wasn't an ounce of snow, but oh, the coquito would flow. As we sang the aguinaldo, the carnaval would begin to grow. Business is closed, and we're about to go. Let's have a carnaval del barrio. Carnaval del barrio. Carnaval del barrio. Carnaval.
Carnaval
del barrio.
barrio.
Carnaval del barrio.
Barrio.
We don't need electricidad. Get off your butt, avanza. Saca la maraca, bring your tambourine. Come and join the parranda. Hey! Carnaval del barrio. Carnaval del barrio. Carnaval del barrio. Carnaval del barrio.
Oh, me, Danny, I have a question. I don't know what you're cantando.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today.
Your head, just so long as you sing.
Oh, my mom is Dominican, Cuban. My
Here
dad is...
Okay, here we go. That song is amazing. I guess we are setting the tone for today's energy and vibe. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today. We are here to kick off the We the Women series for fall. No better way than to be doing it than to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month with such an amazing powerhouse as Dr. Estela Lopez. We are extremely delighted and proud to be hosting her today. She has been, again, as mentioned before, a powerhouse in the educational system. And it is extremely exciting for us to be having her and sharing about an hour or so with her in conversation about how she got to where she is today and what barriers she faced in her career. Not only are we super excited to be hosting Dr. Estela Lopez today, we are extremely delighted to be having Carolyn Burgos as our moderator today. Carolyn is an alum of STCC, recently graduated in 2019. Not only is she an alum, Carolyn is now an actual employee of STCC, which makes me so extremely proud and happy for her. She is completing her first week as a success navigator. And what better way than to be closing off her first week by having this conversation and engaging with us today. So I am going to be sitting back and enjoying this conversation. I know there's going to be a lot of knowledge shared today, and I hope that you all enjoy. I hope you guys have your cups of tea, coffee, and are ready for an amazing conversation. Know that towards the end of this conversation, we will leave about 15 minutes or so for you all to ask questions. So you can type up your questions, and either Carolyn or I will be asking those questions of Dr. Estela Lopez. So again, thank you guys so much. And I look forward to this conversation. And I'll turn it over to Carolyn now.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here and very excited to have Dr. Estela Lopez here with us in this conversation. I am going to introduce her, do a little bio. She's clearly amazing, so y'all would need to give me a minute. So Dr. Estela Lopez recently retired from the Connecticut State Colleges and University System, where she served as the interim provost and senior vice president for academic and student affairs. She is the former vice chancellor of academic affairs of the Connecticut State University System. She served in that capacity from 2002 to 2007. From 1997 to 2002, Dr. Lopez occupied the position of Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs at Northeastern Illinois University. Prior to joining Northeastern, Lopez served as a senior associate at the American Association for Higher Education and as a senior fellow at the American Council on Education while on a year-long sabbatical. From 1990 to 1995, Lopez was vice president for academic affairs and planning at the Inter-American University of Puerto Rico. Lopez earned a bachelor's degree in Spanish literature at Queens College. She then attended Columbia University, where she earned both a master's degree and a PhD in Spanish literature. She is the recipient of the Hispanic Caucus of AAHE Distinguished Leadership in Higher Education Award. She is also the recipient of the Illinois Latino Council in Higher Education Distinguished Service Award. In 2005, she was the recipient of the Connecticut Women's Education and Legal Fund Award. The Latino and Puerto Rican Affairs Commission selected her as the Latina Citizen of the Year for 2006. In 2008, she also received the Connecticut Hispanic Bar Association Achievement Award. She was selected as one of the 2017 Wonder Woman by Malta House. In 2015, she was reappointed as a board member of the Connecticut State Board of Education and is currently the vice chair on the board. In addition, she serves on the boards of Connecticut Health and Education Financial Authority, Malta House of Care, Open Communities Alliance, and the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. So an amazing person with a lot of accolades, clearly, and we're really happy to have you here. I'm gonna let you say hello, and then we can dive into some of the questions we have for you today.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you so much for that introduction. You didn't say that I'm a grandmother, and that's my biggest and most beautiful title. Thank you, Lydia, for inviting me, and I look forward to the questions, and I hope I pass the test. And also, hopefully, at the end, we'll have a lot of questions that will not be easy ones to answer, but will lead to an enriched dialogue and learning from one another. So again, I'm delighted to be here. Encantada. Muchas gracias.
Thank you for that. Now I'm going to get started with the first question, which is, what does it mean to you to be Latina?
I think, that's one of the fundamental questions that I've asked myself throughout my life. Who am I? And being Latina is part of my identity. I am a Latina woman. That means that I speak Spanish at home, that I pray in Spanish, that I curse in Spanish. Cursing in English is not the same for me. I am very sorry. When I went back to live in Puerto Rico, that was very difficult because I forgot people understood me when I was driving and I would yell these not nice words. But that's part of who I am. My emotional language is Spanish. My professional language is English. I have an accent, and also I'm an immigrant. So all those things make who I am, and I have embraced that. I'm proud of it, and I have it as a commitment to work to help people who are similar to me in their background and in terms of who they are.
Thank you for that. Next question is, how has being a Latina in your field affected your career?
I think it's in multiple ways. I think there are things that are not overt. There are ways you're being treated that are subtle, but having an accent, for example, some people, when I have applied for positions, see that as a deficit because they think that the person who should be their symbol, the representative, should not be someone with an accent. They see that as less. They see that as not necessarily being a true American, when in reality, all it means is I know more. I know two languages. I'm bicultural. So I think it makes me more a better person in terms of what I can understand and what I can accept. Discrimination sometimes is not directly seen. It's like I said, subtle, but I have encountered it. And what I have found is that by being underestimated, it has given me a chance to demonstrate that I can do more than many people expect.
Right. How have you been able to stay completely authentic to who you are?
I think it's sort of understanding who you are. You know, it related to your first question. The fact that I admit that I'm a Latina, then that means that I need to ensure that I keep that side of my personality alive, and that I try to enrich it with experiences, and I try always, whenever I go, to be connected to my community, to eat the food that I like, you know, to eat arroz y frijoles, you know, and tostones and so on and so forth, because that makes me happy. So it's really to incorporate all those aspects of being Latina, the music. That's why I'm so glad you play Carnaval from In the Heights, because that's who we are. And we enjoy, and we try to enjoy life and see each other as people who have joy in spite of all the challenges that we have faced.
Can you take us through the trajectory to your current position?
Sure, absolutely. First, I'm retired. So my current position is retirement, which I was able to accomplish because I worked very hard. But when I started, I wanted to be a teacher. That's all I wanted to be. I wanted to be a Spanish teacher. The only thing I realized, I knew I didn't want to teach teenagers. So that meant I wanted to teach at college level. And that requires a graduate degree, a master's, and a PhD. So not wanting to teach teenagers led me to higher education and to a PhD. I became a faculty member, enjoyed teaching, and then slowly began to realize that if I wanted to have more impact, being an administrator would allow me to that. Being an administrator means that you control a budget. And when you have a budget, you put your priorities into the funding. You decide what areas you want to support through the money that is there. And that's what I wanted to be able to do. So that led me to administration. That led me to become what is called a provost, which is really a vice president for academic affairs, to have a budget in Chicago. When I was a provost, my budget was over $30 million to secure grants and so on. So I could allocate the funding to, again, the areas that I felt were important. Then I became more intentional. In the beginning, I wasn't intentional, but I was always open to opportunities. Somebody said, Estela, you want to try this? I would say, absolutely. Let me take a look at it. Let me try it. So being open allowed me to be prepared and to be offered these very enriching opportunities that I've had throughout my career, and that then allow others to see me in leadership roles. So it wasn't intentionality in the beginning. Towards the middle of my professional career, I was much more intentional and really prepare myself for being a top administrator.
I think you answered part of this next question, but I'm still going to ask it. The question is, why higher education as your career choice?
Right, absolutely. Again, I said I didn't want to teach teenagers. One of the places where I taught, they asked me to go to an elementary school, and I taught children that were in second or third grade. I taught them Spanish, and I love them. I love them. And then they sent me the next year, they sent me to teach middle schools, and I couldn't do it. I just couldn't handle the teenagers. So I am I'm in awe of those people that teach middle schools and high school. My daughter loves to do that. She connects with teenagers in very powerful ways, but that's not my strength. I'd rather teach at a senior center than than middle school. So.
Now, when you began your career, did you ever imagine that you would be where you are today?
No, never. I never thought. Again, my imagination was very limited at that time. I knew, again, I wanted to teach, but I didn't realize perhaps where I could go or what I could become. It's been a blessing. It's been an incredible blessing and incredibly powerful trajectory for me. And I feel blessed And I'm very grateful for everybody that has helped me along the way, because I've had a lot of help.
Now, I see that you just mentioned about receiving help. So I'm gonna skip a couple of questions and go right into who inspired you and why, and did you have a woman leader as a mentor?
Oh, absolutely. I've had many people that have mentored me and helped me in different times, because I've had a long career. And as you described, I work in Puerto Rico. I started in New York City. Then I went to Puerto Rico and worked there for many years. Then I went to Washington, D.C. for a year. Then I went to Chicago. And then I moved to Connecticut. And now although I'm retired, I'm in Louisiana. So it's been multiple states, multiple places. In Puerto Rico, I had a very good mentor. It was a woman called Nildi. And Nildi really showed me how you prepare yourself, how you go to a meeting, knowing the material, how you attend the meeting, being very present, on time, and how you work together, because the work that has to be done cannot be done one person. You need to create coalitions. You need to lobby. You need to have other people support you. If you want to introduce change, if you're the only one advocating for it, it will not happen. You need at least 3 people that will sort of fight together or advocate together for what you're trying to accomplish. So how do you negotiate that? How do you work together? How, instead of fighting, you collaborate? And I really learned from her all those powerful lessons. And I also learned from her, because what we would do, this is in Puerto Rico, we would go to dinners to plan what needed to be happening in the meetings, to sort of anticipate and collaborate. And then they had a dessert card. And sometimes instead of having dinner, we would just have the dessert card. And I remember that was the first time I tried tres leches, which I'm a fan of, and that made the planning process even more wonderful than it was, because we were enjoying each other's company. We were learning from one another, and she was, again, a great mentor. And I was eating the most sweetest dessert, filled with sugar and joy. But along the way, I also met other women. I worked in Washington, D.C. with other women who taught me what being political meant. Sometimes for women, being political, it's sort of a bad thing. You think you're selling your soul. And she really taught me that it's really about networking. It's really about connecting with different groups and different people, trying to understand it. Again, it's not selling who you are. It's not giving up your values. It's how do you collaborate? So I learned from her how she did it. She was very smart and did that. I had a male mentor also, a Chicano male mentor, who was very helpful in terms of the administration side of my job. And he taught me, again, how to advocate, how to prepare for proposals that would lead to future endeavors and so on and so forth. So, and in Chicago, I had a wonderful, wonderful woman who worked with me. And she's Asian American, and I learned about her culture, about silence, because she believed that silence allowed meditation, a different way of working. We're still very close friends. So again, many people, and that made me really, I'm giving you a very long answer, but I think it's important for me to explain, because that having help along my career has only meant that I have to give back, that part of my responsibility is to help others, to pay it forward, to ensure that other women have the same opportunity. So that's a commitment that I've made along my way, and I try to do the best I can every day.
All right, thank you for sharing that with us. Now, we're going to dive a little bit into the topic of leadership. So what do you think are 3 important characteristics of a good leader?
I think understanding that you cannot do the job by yourself. That, part of how we grew up, especially, in our countries, in the Dominican Republic, in Puerto Rico, is you see these heroes on horses, these men in parks sitting on a horse, and you get the image that to be a hero, you have to have a horse and launch yourself and, and conquer the world. That's not true leadership. Leadership is really working together, having people support your ideas and listening to them to ensure that what you're presenting is truly representative of the group. So that's a major part of being a leader. I think it's the idea that you're not alone. You have a responsibility towards those that are part of your community or your group. I think the idea that you have to have your values, you have to know what are the values that are part of your core, so you don't abandon them along the way. So, and you need to be prepared. You need to ensure that you know what you're doing. You cannot lead if you ignore, if you don't have the information, if you are not aware of the key things of whatever issue you're trying to deal and address. You cannot lead if you're not educated about those issues and the importance of them. So there are many other things, but I think those are critical things that I try to follow, I try to ensure. And when I have failed, it's because I have not kept those things that I've shared with you, I have not done them well. So.
Now, what do you believe to be the greatest quality one must possess to be able to inspire others as a leader?
I think it's to walk the talk. There's nothing worse than being eloquent and being saying, oh my God, follow me, and oh my God, I walk on water, and then you're not able to do it. I think what is lasting is that you're able to walk the talk, that whatever you say, you provide the example, you try to do it. Even if you fail, you try to do it. And you show others that you are committed to walking with them and to be present with them.
Definitely agree with that. Now, what do you think is the most significant barrier to female leadership, and what has been a barrier in your own career?
This is going to sound not significant, but I think for women, the biggest barrier is family. Is the notion that we have to balance. As women, we're still very much connected and see family as a responsibility. Family not only to, if you're married or if you have a partner, but if you have children, if you have mother and father, the traditional role that we play in the structure of family. And how do you balance that vis-a-vis the work commitments? I had to choose. At one time, when my daughter graduated from college, I was new in Chicago as a provost, and the president asked me to be there for commencement. And it was the same day as my daughter's graduation from college, and I had to choose, and I chose work. I chose to go to where I work. I still feel guilty about it. She says it doesn't matter because my husband went, her sister went, she had a good time, she didn't miss me, but I still feel guilty about it. So I think it's really, and there are many instances whenever I talk to women who are in the academy, what I hear from them is that challenge of balancing, the balancing and the tension between work and addressing family issues. The family, do you cook? I became, in Puerto Rico, I became a avid consumer of pizzas, and the pizza place knew me so well that when I went on vacation, they were worried because they said, you haven't ordered pizza this week. So, is that the best way to prepare food for your family? But you have to make trade-offs. I think that's a real challenge. I remember my daughter being in the hospital one time, and I was grading papers in her hospital room because I had to, return them and so on and so forth. So how do you do that? I think it's very difficult and complicated. There are many other challenges, but to me, from talking to women, I see that as a major one, as a very significant one.
Now, besides the balance of family, do you have any other significant obstacles that you've had to overcome to get to where you're at today?
Oh my gosh, many. And I think here's the thing, you talk about my accomplishment and all these wonderful opportunities. You didn't talk about my failures. And I think the failures were sometimes devastating. Sometimes I had to face the fact that in order to continue, I have to leave where I was working. because I couldn't continue in that environment. It was not a healthy environment for me, so I had to make that decision. But we don't talk about failures, and we don't talk about to recover from failures. We don't talk about what you learn from failures. And sometimes you learn more from failures than from success. I think the recovery of failures is one of the things that we have to learn as part of being professional. You have to be able to pick yourself up and to continue and to see the mistakes that you have made as opportunities for improvement and for learning. I have learned more from them than from my successes. My successes is, oh my God, Estela, we like you. Failures is, oh my God, Estela, you did not do this well. How do you improve? How do you learn so it doesn't happen again? How do you prevent that from occurring again? How do you change and become a better person, a better professional? So failures are more significant. Again, we don't acknowledge them. We don't talk about them. We're sort of embarrassed by them. They're critical. They're really critical. And I think it doesn't mean that one has not done well. It only means that we're human and that we have an opportunity to do better. How do we teach that to the young women that are coming along, or the young people that are coming along, that failures are not the end, but only an obstacle that will enhance your career and your life?
Thank you for that. Now, you mentioned briefly earlier about unhealthy work environments. So this is going to be kind of a heavy question, but I'm going to ask, as a Latina, were there times when you experienced racism or prejudice on the job?
Absolutely. I think because I'm tall, nobody was ever directly prejudiced against me. But I do remember, I'll tell you this anecdote. When I went to Chicago as a provost, one of the deans who reported to me, he told me that his wife's family was related to the Pilgrims that came in the Mayflower. So what he was saying to me really, in cold ways, was that, my God, he's a true American. His wife comes from, the original founders of this country and so on. So I look at him and said, you know what? I came in an airplane. I came in American Airlines to Chicago. So I'm delighted to hear about your wife's background. And he was really not somebody that liked me very much. At the end, by working together, because I respected him, I show him respect. And even when we disagree, I remember when we had a major disagreement, I took him out to lunch. And lunches do a great deal of, they're very useful for talking to people because you're private and you're sharing food, which is good. So I talked to him and I said, look, you and I have different styles, but we share the same goals. Well, anyway, he retired, which I was very grateful that he did. But he sent me the note. He sent me the nicest note because he recognized that throughout all the differences, I respected him. Throughout all the difference, I listened to him. Throughout all the difference, I made different decisions, but I wasn't humiliating to him. So again, I received the nicest thank you note from him. And that was very meaningful to me. That was a situation that was difficult and so on. But I've had situations like that. Again, I'm usually underestimated. People look at me because I don't shout. My daughter will tell you differently, but I tend not to shout. And I'm trying to resolve things. So people think that by being nice, that means that I can be pushed aside. And that's not the reality. And because I work hard and I'm knowledgeable and I study hard, I am prepared. So people cannot BS me because I will have different perspective and question whatever is being proposed. So it takes strength, I think, to when you're facing discrimination. It takes strength to not be impacted in a way that diminishes what you need to do. One has to be strong internally to sustain that discrimination and to say to yourself, I can do it in spite of what they think. I can do it in spite of what they expect. I can do it and show them in spite of their expectations.
I definitely agree. And I love everything you just said. Thank you for sharing that. Now, through all the success, through all the obstacles and failures, what encourages you? What keeps you going?
I think helping students. Helping students. I tell you, this is something that I've shared with many people. I hated my high school in New York. I hated it with a passion. And it was very difficult for me to survive that high school. But one of the things I learned is that even though I was an immigrant, I had lost everything in coming to this country, what I could not lose was whatever I learned. That education would not be taken away from me. So in that high school that I hated so much, that made my life so difficult, I made the most important decision of my life, which is to get an education and to work. And I think that's what drives me to work, so other students do not have to go through what I went through. So I can help as many students as possible to be successful, to feel included, to have a voice, and to be seen. There are many students, especially from our community, that are invisible. So to be seen and to be respected. So again, that's why I say from the bad experiences, I've had the most incredible opportunities to act in ways that I can make a difference.
Now, what is your motto, if you do have one?
Oh, I have different mottos. It depends. You know, I usually it's poetry. Poetry inspires me, and I usually have some sort of a poem that I like. But I'll tell you, recently a good friend of mine sent me a quote from Eugenio Maria de Hostos, who is Puerto Rican, but he lives in the Dominican Republic, and he also works in South America. And this is a quote from him, and I just love it, and it sort of represents what I strive to be. It says, "Whoever suffers from lack of truth and justice is my friend." So I see my role as really being a defender of those that suffer from a lack of truth and justice. My role is, if I have this knowledge, if I have this education, if I had these opportunities, professional opportunities, I need to ensure that I support those that lack justice, those that lack truth.
Thank you for that. What are 3 events that helped to shape your life?
Oh my God, that's because I had a long career and a long life. I think leaving my country, that was very difficult. It was my parents' decision. I was very angry when I came to this country. I didn't like New York. I didn't like bricks. Imagine living in New York and not liking bricks. You know, I wanted to see palm trees and, whatever. So coming to New York was really, and then it took me years, but then I fell in love with the city, and I still love it, and the energy it has, and I'm glad that I lived there for many years. I think then when I moved to Puerto Rico really, it's a place that I fell in love with. My husband is Puerto Rican, my daughter was born in Puerto Rico, and my professional career really took off in Puerto Rico. So I love the island, I love its people, the generosity, the music, the food, and what I've learned from being there. Also, becoming a grandmother. That's the title I like best. And, my grandchild calls me Ita, from Abuelita. And it's funny because one time when she was in childcare, she kept saying, Ita is coming, and the people there thought I was Japanese, that this Japanese lady is coming, and Ita again is Abuelita. But anyway, being a grandmother and seeing what a wonderful human being my grandchild is, what a wonderful young person she is, and her values. So I'm still learning from her. So it's very powerful. If you notice, it's not the professional accomplishments, because I think, you leave jobs, you leave your profession, you leave your office. What stays with you is who you are, your family, those whom you love, and what you have learned from places and from people.
Now, well, first of all, thank you for that. That was beautiful. Now, what advice would you give to women who are first-generation college students and who may be struggling in their educational journey?
They have to study. You have to study. And here's the reason why people don't understand. You can be very smart, but having a degree gives you the credibility, gives you the credentials to be taken seriously, especially for us when we are saying we're being discriminated, we're not being taken seriously. So having that degree gives you credibility, gives you opportunities, and gives you choices. You know, I can be many things in my life, or I could have done many things in my life because I had a degree. I think being present and reliable. I think I've seen many young women who coming late to meetings or coming late to where they need to be on time, and they're not prepared, they're not reliable. You ask them to take a task and they are not unable to do it. And we all have problems and challenges, but we should be reliable. People should be able to count on us. That's one of the things that I've been known for, that if I'm asked, if I'm included, if I'm requested to do a task, I try to do it to the best of my ability. And also being present, you know, on time. I've suffered many times because I'm never late. In Puerto Rico, that was not an asset. People will say to you, come at 5 o'clock for a party, and you went in at 5 o'clock and people were taking a shower. So 5 o'clock means 5:30, but I'm still, you know, there at 5 o'clock. I'm early. So I think, and then the other aspect is really know your values. Your career, you have many challenges and many, you will be questioned, you will be exposed to things that may address doing things that go against your values. You really need to ensure that along your way, you don't lose your values, because at the end, you know, at my age, for example, I still like myself. I still know who I am. I still have not that many gray hair because I know what I am and who I am. I've traveled all this journey, this difficult journey, complex journey with my values. I haven't thrown them away. So that's critical. That's something that I believe we all need to ensure throughout our life, that we take those values with us.
Now, what does it mean to give back to your community?
Oh my God, that's the most fulfilling thing. The giving back, seeing somebody that you have been able to influence and help, it's the most fulfilling thing. I had recently a young woman from the Dominican Republic who called me to say that she had finished her master's in social work from Brown University. She started at a community college. And a couple of years ago, she called me and said, Estela, do I apply to Brown? Do I do this? And I was sort of help her think it through. To see her accomplish that is the most fulfilling thing. I prefer that to all the plaques and all the awards that I've received. That's the most important thing in my life, you know, being able to have helped somebody.
What is one of the toughest decisions that you've had to make, and how did it impact your life?
I think toughest decisions is, for example, when I've had to tell somebody that they should not continue in the job, and why. That's a very difficult decision when you have to fire somebody or let go someone because they're not doing their performance. And how do you help them to move along? How do you tell them that it's not the end, and how you do it in as much as possible in a respectful way. Those are situations that are very, very difficult and very complicated. In terms of faculty, for example, when I had to do it, I did it thinking about the students that person would impact. And I knew that person was not doing the job that it was required, that person would be impacting many students if we kept him on the job. And I wanted to protect the students from the negativity that person brought to the classroom. But it's a difficult decision, very difficult.
Now, speaking of tough situations, how has the current pandemic, COVID-19, affected or impacted your work?
I think, you know, I'm retired, so it's a very different situation. I think what I have done is really, I made a commitment to reach out to people who were alone, people that I knew because of whatever life circumstances were living by themselves. So we sort of created a bubble, and I would talk to people almost every day that were alone or were, I have a friend who lost his wife along the way, so I call him every other week. I call him, I speak to him. I had to learn to do not only Zoom, but WebEx, go to meetings and other technologies. My computer died along the way because I installed so many apps and it was an old computer, so I had to buy a new one. But, I find it challenging, and I made the tough decision to, and on my daughter's insistence, to live with her, to live together as 3 generations living together, and it's really working very well. So it really made a big change. And still, I feel every day, I feel blessed and grateful, because in spite of everything, I have many, many, many blessings in my life, and I am grateful for every one of them.
Now, if you had to start over from scratch, knowing what you know now, what would you do different, if anything?
When I saw that question, I said, I don't know what I would do different. I really don't know, because as I said to you, all the mistakes, all the errors have led to improvement, have led to my questioning and trying to be better. It will be not so much professionally, but maybe personal. I fell in love with people that I shouldn't have fallen in love, but that's that doesn't matter anymore. So I think it's not that I am not, that I haven't repented from certain things, it's that I've learned from them. And so I know, and I think life is a journey. Life is a journey, and you don't really, if you think that the journey is sort of a highway that you just walk in and follow it, you're wrong. You have to create your own journey. You have to make it. There's a beautiful Spanish poem by a poet called Antonio Machado, who talks about caminante no hay camino. There's no highway, you make it as you walk. So in my life, I had that opportunity, and although it hasn't been perfect, it's been a good life. It's been a very good life.
Wow, this all is so amazing. I feel so full, and normally I take notes. It's always something that sticks out to me in these conversations, but I've taken so many notes.
Thank you.
Yes, and we'll come back to address some of that. I just want to leave time to have the audience ask questions, since we have had about 45 minutes or so of our conversation here. And we do have a question being posed from Fabiana dos Santos. And the question says, have you ever experienced discrimination by your Spanish community for being successful?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's not discrimination. I think it's called envy. I think there are people, and that's difficult. And I tell you another anecdote. When I was in Puerto Rico, people think that it was easy for me. I was a vice president. That it was easy for me to work in Puerto Rico, where everybody's Latino and whatever. But it was very hard. And I tell you why. All the vice presidents were men, except for me. I was the youngest one. And the worst part is I was the tallest one. So all these little men did not like that I was taller than they were. How they did it, what they did was, in Puerto Rico, there's something called Viernes Social, where you go out drinking on Fridays. Well, as a married woman, I couldn't do that because it would have been seen as not acceptable. And so these men would go out together, drink, and they would make deals and keep me out of their deals. Okay. So it was, in that sense, it was very difficult, but it was really the fact that, again, being told, and I was the only one with a PhD. They did not have terminal degrees, these little men, and they were little in many ways. So it was tough. It was a very tough situation. I did last 5 years, and then I left. And that's part of what you have to really sometimes realize that you have to do. If you're not in a welcoming environment, sometimes in order to keep your health, your sanity, your sense of purpose, you have to leave and move on to another place.
Right. I think we have another question coming through. Yeah, we don't have another question at the moment, but I want to encourage the audience to poise their questions. Estela did say that that's part of what she was anticipating to have in this conversation, just questions from the audience. So please make sure to not be shy and ask whatever questions you might have. In the meantime, I will talk a little bit about some of the things that you stated that kind of resonated with me. I did hear you speak once before for our professional day. And after I heard some of your speaking, I was like, oh my God, I need to invite her again, because I feel like you are so humble in your approach to the conversations, and that you're so open with what you're saying. It just feels like, it touches you. And so when you talk about your emotional language is Spanish and your professional language is English, I've been in the professional world for a while now, and I've never been able to really articulate that, So when you said it the first time and you say it again, it's just like, wow, this is like exactly how I felt for years, and talking about being authentic and stuff. It's so hard when you come from another country and you're trying to adapt and you're trying to become part of a different culture, and then you are in rooms where people don't look like you, or they have PhDs and stuff. Like I've always been super fortunate to be in spaces, like you stated before, you've had many people help you throughout your journey. And I feel like I have been very fortunate myself to have had that throughout my career and continue to have that. So oftentimes I felt like, what am I doing in this room? Like I tried to disguise my accent for so many years, and it was like, it's draining. So to hear people like you say, just know who you are and things will become so much easier. It really touches me. I don't know if Carolyn wants to expand on that at all, since she has been moderating the conversation. And I know that I've known her journey for a little bit, which is an amazing one. So
I wanted to thank Carolyn for all those incredible questions that helped me, ponder many, many things that are very profound. So thank you, Carolyn. Thank you for asking them and allowing me to try to answer them.
Yeah, Carolyn.
I just want to give credit where credit is due, that Lydia did work on these questions. So I want to give that credit. I'm not going to sit here and take it. But yeah, they were amazing questions. I think I definitely enjoyed this conversation. I myself am looking to get into higher education. As I was here at SCCC, I did student government, and being involved literally made me change what I wanted to do as a career. It inspired me, and I want to do higher ed, and I want to be in the area of student affairs and things like that. So I definitely enjoyed and honored to get to meet you. And I definitely enjoyed our conversation here today. So thank you for everything.
No, thank you. Thank you. And I hope you do. I hope, it's a long and complicated journey. It's not easy. And again, I tell you, I have a PhD, but I haven't talked to you about what it took for me to complete my PhD. So because we don't tell those stories, we tell only the good stories, not the difficult sides. But it is difficult that gives you strength. It is difficult that you learn from. It is difficult that will shape who you are, especially if you're able to face it and overcome it. I'm very much in favor of really helping people to understand that that's not the end. If you have a something that is difficult happening to you, that's not the end. You need to continue. You need to pick yourself up. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. Doesn't mean that you're going to throw it away, but it's life is complicated and you need to continue along the way. So
All right, so we have another question, and the question reads, as faculty and staff at an institution, how do you navigate making changes that you see your students need when it's not supported by upper level administration and you are not in a tenure position, so you feel vulnerable?
I think that's a very complicated question because it's not specific. It depends. It really depends. There's part of what I've learned in my life, there's no such thing as a perfect approach, one approach. It's multiple approaches depending on the circumstances. There are ways to address things that are because if you're teaching a class, you can adapt your teaching to the students that you have in that moment. You have the opportunity within your classroom space to really do things that impact students in powerful ways. So that's one way. If you want to take that to another level, then it depends. It depends whether you have the evidence that the change that you're making has an impact. Can you share that impact? Because everybody wants to see good results. Can you share that impact and say, this is the way I have approached it and here's the result that I have. If you go somewhere and say, we need to change this because I want to, you're not going to move ahead. You have to really ensure that whatever you're proposing, you have some sort of evidence, that either an external evidence that somebody else is doing, internal evidence that you're doing. If you get colleagues, again, if instead of doing it by yourself, you get other colleagues to support doing that approach together and getting results, that's a way also of convincing people, because nobody's against success. Nobody's against success. So I think it depends. I would need to have more specific data, I think, or more specific information to really design the strategy. I think what I've learned is that, in order to make change, it requires a lot of effort. It does require a lot of effort, and sometimes it's frustrating. But you cannot make change by going against. Change will happen if you collaborate, if you work together. That's the way that has to be done, and that takes a lot of effort. Sometimes we don't have the patience, we don't have the time, we don't have but that's the way it has to be approached.
Okay, I do not see any other questions. Again, we have a few minutes left. I would encourage you guys to ask if you have any other questions. If not, we will conclude with our session today. And again, want to really extend a warm thanks to Dr. Estela Lopez. Also would like to thank Carolyn Burgos for being so brave. She has always stepped up to whenever she is called for anything. So thank you for always stepping outside of your comfort zone and for bringing all of you, like Dr. Lopez stated, you are someone who always come on time, who always comes prepared for the occasion. So I look forward to continuing working with you and seeing where your journey is going to take you. Actually, I think we have another question really quickly. So, okay, this is just a thank you to Dr. Lopez. You are incredible and so inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you. And I hope, Caroline, you stay in touch and let me know how you move ahead in higher education. And again, because of where I am professionally, my role is sort of different now, but I need people like you to continue working and to continue to help our community and to ensure that we are there at the table and having opportunities. And thank you, Lydia, again, for this wonderful invitation and for this opportunity to participate in this day to day. So I really, muchas gracias de todo corazón.
Igual, gracias a ti por todo lo que has hecho por nuestra comunidad. Y I'm going to leave everyone with the quote that you stated. Whoever suffers from lack of truth and justice is our friend, not just my friend. Thank
Muchas
you,
gracias.
guys. Enjoy the
Bye-bye.
rest of your day.